UFO, we've discussed this topic so many times already. Remember clearly, but Throughout the long history of human development, numerous records have documented the repeated appearances of these mysterious creatures on Earth. For example, like this. This document records the mysterious accident that occurred in the famous Kecksburg in 1965, an event we are currently witnessing. What is that really? An unidentified flying object, UFO, covered in sharp spikes appeared before humanity? Or was it just a stray meteorite falling to Earth? Or was it a malfunctioning satellite returning to Earth? The head is the key to uncovering the truth behind this mysterious incident. It's great to see everyone again in the latest video from the primordial universe. Searching for answers to the UFO incident in Kecksburg. On December 9, 1965, a mysterious object suddenly appeared in the sky over the village of Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Residents in 6 U.S. border states and Canada witnessed a glowing ball of light streaking down at incredible speed before vanishing. In that brief moment, most people were terrified by this bizarre sight, which had never appeared before. It emitted a harsh blue light, exactly like the glare from a welding arc. The story would likely come to life more if told by the man himself. Bill Bush, a longtime resident of Kecksburg, also witnessed the incident firsthand. It was around 4:30 in the afternoon. Bill had just come home from work and was waiting for his wife to cook dinner. He stepped outside, got into his 1964 Chevy Corvette, listening to the CB radio while basking in the pride of owning such a sleek and luxurious car. While fumbling with the control panel, Bill suddenly heard a zap sound. Out of curiosity, Bill looked up at the sky and unexpectedly saw a strange glowing object. The thing was truly bizarre. Bill got out of the car to take a closer look. To his astonishment and amazement, it suddenly plunged down into the parking area in Kecksburg. He was certain he had seen something extremely strange. It wasn't an airplane, nor was it a hot air balloon. That's right, it could be an unidentified flying object. Mind, and he wasn't. Bill believed in himself, trusted his own curiosity, and was also incredibly fascinated by that strange object. He was determined to get to the bottom of it. What on earth was this thing? Bill jumped into his car and sped straight to the Kecksburg dock. He stopped the car on the hilltop, turned on the hazard lights, then glanced toward the parking lot. The pungent smell of sulfur rose thickly, saturating the entire space at that moment. As Bill walked down the hill, he could still hear the sizzling sound like molten metal. And he stood there to figure out what that thing actually was. How strange, it was a massive, dumpling-shaped metal object, pale bronze in color, half buried deep in the ground by the Kuvacha. This object is approximately 3 to 3.6 meters long, with a diameter of 2.5 to 3 meters, and has a monolithic structure resembling a solid cast metal block. According to witnesses, they had never seen anything like it before. Admire this amazing design right here. Not a single rivet, no seams, not even a body or head, nor any wings. Everything is one solid, intact block. I am very impressed by it and firmly believe that in 1965, no country in the world possessed the advanced technology to create an object like this. After about 15 minutes, Bill decided to leave, fearing that the cigarette he was smoking might cause the strange block to explode. He climbed onto his beloved bike and rode off. At that time, many people turned back to practice and began buzzing with discussions about the accident. Meanwhile, in Greenburg, about 12 miles from the accident scene, radio station WSJP's hotline was flooded with calls from listeners. The director of the WSJP office has received reports from multiple witnesses about an unidentified object that recently fell in Kecksburg. Some say it was a strange, extraordinary sphere. Someone said that the plane plunged down and exploded. More remarkably, some witnesses even claimed to have seen with their own eyes a UFO landing on Earth in egg-shaped objects. This shocking news was immediately relayed to the veteran reporters at WSJ. This is truly a serious issue. Unfortunately, no one has been brave enough to approach and identify what exactly just fell from above. The reason is that just 1 hour after the accident, the US military was already at the scene along with the local authorities. The entire area has been sealed off, and residents are no longer allowed to approach the mysterious object. The heavy military presence at 7 o'clock only deepened the curiosity of Pennsylvania residents. Among them was Bill Weaver. Weaver headed south toward the forest, where the military hadn't yet set up a blockade, to find out what that giant orb really was. Back then, he thought it was a malfunctioning Russian satellite falling back into the atmosphere. But his innate curiosity drove him to keep exploring, to the point where he was so stunned and amazed that he was left speechless. That really is a strange piece of metal. The front part had been buried in the ground after the collision, but it still emitted a faint blue glow. The light gradually weakened and then went out completely just moments later. However, Weaver couldn't stay calm and firmly insisted that it was indeed a military area. However, before Weaver could calm down and clearly identify what it was, the security forces arrived and ordered him to leave the forest. While the public was still bewildered and discussing the strange object, WSJP reporter John Murphy arrived at the accident scene at 5:30 a.m. that same day. To avoid being detected by the military, he slipped into the forest and secretly took a few photos of that strange object. Despite holding extremely valuable evidence, in the end, the military still discovered and erased all traces of the object John had collected. Without hesitation, Murphy continued to record the testimonies of witnesses present at the scene. At the same time, the military increasingly reinforced its forces and barred reporters from working. To prevent the public from accessing the area, state police officers and soldiers armed with guns were ready to block any unauthorized filming or photography. It seems that object is far from simple. The military's presence made everyone realize the gravity of the situation. Is that thing shaped like a sticky rice bundle actually a crashed alien spaceship that fell to Earth? Just a little, it must be something extremely dangerous, something the military definitely doesn't. In an instant, a fleet of military trucks and a massive force surged into Keseberg. A tense atmosphere hung thick in the air, as if a battle was about to erupt. They stood blocking the front of Bill Bubba's car, repeatedly warning him that he was not allowed to enter the forest. You don't have to be a genius. Even an average high school student can see how serious the situation is. The team leaders spotted a large flatbed truck, along with several military jeeps, speeding into the forest and vanishing in the blink of an eye. After about 2 hours, it turned into something transparent, resembling either an acorn or a bell, depending on one's imagination. Perhaps the military had arrived at the accident scene, but they didn't want the public to know about it. However, that strange object was so massive that they couldn't escape. The next day, journalists, reporters, and the division collected testimonies from witnesses present at the scene. The truth cannot be hidden. Most of them believe this is an alien probe. Local newspapers, radio stations, and other media outlets have escalated this issue to a more heated level. Thanks to the widespread reach of the media, Americans and people around the world are increasingly concerned about the incident and eager to know the truth. Are we truly alone in this vast universe? The actions of the military and the government have left everyone feeling disappointed. Since 1965, the US government has consistently maintained that no objects fell in Keseberg that day. Is this shallow and irresponsible explanation part of your grand plan, Mr. Bilchet? What exactly is that sticky rice-shaped object? To find the answer, we must seek out this man. Stang Golden launched an investigation to uncover the truth behind the incident. According to documents from Project Blue Book, Golden learned that the government and military relentlessly pursued the case until 2 a.m. during this incident. But they found no traces matching what the locals had described. It's strange, even earlier articles reporting on the incident a few days later claimed that the witnesses were mistaken and nothing had happened at all. Why is this happening? Could it be that so many people misread and misunderstood the accident? What was the truck carrying just now? The anonymous account holder has retracted all testimonies and citations from the websites, causing all information to vanish completely, while also not wanting anyone to investigate this matter further. The biggest question still remains unanswered. What is that strange object? Gowden also added that the government insists there has been a misunderstanding. The authorities thoroughly searched the entire forest but found nothing. As an EFO research expert, he spent nearly 40 years investigating the Keseberg case but was never satisfied with the US government's explanation. Do you remember John Murphy? He was the news director at the local radio station WSJP. The witness accounts Murphy gathered had caught his particular attention. He was captivated by the tales and utterly astonished to hear that something had fallen in the outskirts of Keseberg Forest. Object in the woods. To illustrate more clearly, Murphy asked a colleague to help write a story based on all the data he had gathered. He was extremely excited and hopeful that his product would help the American people as well as the world uncover the truth behind the incident. However, before the show Object in the Woods aired, two men claiming to be government agents approached Murphy. They wanted to have a private discussion, then took him into the FM radio station's recording room. The conversation lasted about half an hour. In just a brief 30 minutes, everything had completely changed. Murphy suddenly did a complete 180 on his passion project for no reason at all. From then on, he never mentioned the Keseberg incident again. His initial enthusiasm faded, giving way to anxiety and fear. Object in the Woods. However, the film's content failed to convey the message Murphy intended, as it had been altered from the original concept. The subject in question has been altered. That wasn't what Murphy wanted to announce, nor was it what everyone was expecting. When asked why there was such a sudden change, Murphy couldn't provide a satisfactory explanation. Did the government pressure Murphy into changing the content of that documentary? The appearance of those two strangers led me to only speculate that Murphy had been threatened, as I couldn't find any more convincing reason. But he said the program was changed because some interviewees were concerned that their statements weren't entirely accurate. The government did not interfere or influence him in any way. This is truly baffling. Tien, Murphy's close colleague who co-wrote the script for that passion-filled project, also affirmed that such a sudden change like this is not his usual way of working. So what was Murphy hiding from us? Who made him abandon his quest to uncover the truth behind the Keseberg incident? What a pity, we will never get the answer. For how can the departed tell their tale again? In February 1969, Murphy died after being hit by a car on a highway near Ventura, California. The sudden departure has led many to quietly wonder, is there some hidden force concealing the truth behind it all? Perhaps this accident wasn't accidental. Over time, the event of December 9, 1965 gradually faded into the past, forgotten with the passing years. Occasionally, the locals would gossip about that matter. But Stan Gordon still couldn't accept that vaguely concealed truth. He was determined to reinvestigate the case. Gordon repeatedly asked his relatives to contact the witnesses from that night to gather more information. However, most of them do not want to speak out despite knowing the truth. They fear being mocked, or for some personal reason, they don't want to express themselves. From 1949 to 1969, Gordon conducted a series of important studies. Over 12,000 reports have been collected, including 700 classified as unidentified. Some documents even deliberately misquote the location, stating ARKME, Pennsylvania instead of the actual site. Gordon clearly understood that the story was referring to the accident at Keseberg. In the mid-1980s, one of Gordon's colleagues accidentally discovered a Blue Book Project report related to the Keseberg incident. Perhaps we should pause the discussion about the accident to explore a few things about Project Blue Book. The Blue Book Project was one of the systematic studies on unidentified flying objects conducted by the U.S. Air Force. Everything began in 1952. This is the third study of its kind, conducted following previous projects on unidentified flying objects, UFOs. The Blue Book Project was launched with the goal of determining whether unidentified flying objects, UFOs, posed a genuine threat to national security, and conduct a scientific analysis of data related to unidentified flying objects, UFOs. Flying discs. Please recount in detail the encounter Trinning had with a group of unidentified aircraft, shaped like discs. He confirmed that these objects have extremely high speeds and agile maneuverability, and was suspected of deliberately evading detection when spotted by military aircraft and radar systems attempting to establish contact. Flying saucers. Therefore, the U.S. government swiftly planned an investigation into the incident involving this unidentified flying object. Accordingly, the SIE project was recently launched at Grant Peterson Air Force Base in Ohio with the aim of researching the white disk. However, later on, the SIE project was replaced by Project Rush. Of course, it didn't collect enough data or draw any feasible conclusions either. Therefore, Project Blue Book was established to continue researching and addressing the unresolved issues from the two previous projects. Under the direction of several Air Force officers, the project members spent most of their time observing UFO sightings. The Red Scare during the Cold War era instilled fear in Americans toward everything they perceived as mysterious, especially what comes from the sky. Therefore, Project Blue Book was established to alleviate some of the public confusion and to verify hypotheses suggesting that the Russians are colluding with aliens to pressure the United States, or perhaps the US is being attacked by another hostile external force. According to government documents released under the Freedom of Information Act, the Blue Book project was officially carried out from 1952 to 1969. Over 12,000 reports of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, have been recorded and studied. And even now, the truths uncovered by Project Blue Book have been revealed to the public. But many still believe the most crucial information has yet to be revealed. The person initially in charge of this project was Captain Edward Johnson, an experienced pilot, honored for outstanding contributions in the second-generation campaign. Unidentified flying object. Ruppel's first scientific advisor was J. Olin Hynek, an outstanding astronomer from Chicago. Hynek's involvement as a scientist helped legitimize the project to some extent. That was not just a group of soldiers searching for the strange light that appeared in the sky. Now, it's not just limited to that but has also become a scientific study on extraterrestrial life. However, Hynek realized that the members involved in Project Blue Book, both lacking in quantity and limited in scientific knowledge. During its 17 years of operation, Project Blue Book recorded a total of 12,618 reported cases of unidentified flying objects, UFOs. 11,917 of those cases were believed to be caused by ice clouds. That could be Air Force training exercises or simply just scrambled information. However, according to proponents of the love hormone theory, there are still 701 unexplained cases. And they believe those instances were genuine UFO sightings, while also claiming that the government deliberately fabricated information. In late 1969, U.S. Secretary of the Air Force Robert C. Seamans announced that Project Blue Book would soon be concluded. Since there is no further scientific evidence confirming that UFOs are a national security threat, the project officially ended on December 17, 1969, although some research activities continued to take place. It continues until January of the following year. In short, Project Blue Book did spark some interest in the existence of UFOs, but the statement conclusively resolved the mystery by attributing those reports to natural or man-made phenomena. However, Air Force Secretary Robert C. Seamans stepped in to defend the Air Force Secretary. Certainly, the information recorded in the Blue Book report is not convincing enough to answer the question at hand. He spoke with the witnesses, and they described the terrifyingly overwhelming presence of the military at the scene. They did not allow people to approach or film the accident scene. But the most important thing is that the military doesn't want the public to see the strange object, which looks like a terrifying fireball. By September 1988, Golden was fortunate to meet Bill Weaver, who was then 62 years old. Clearly, Weaver is the one Golden trusts the most, as he was not only the first witness to the incident but also remained silent for the past 23 years. Both went to the old scene, where Weaver reenacted the entire incident he had witnessed and pieced together. Take the testimony of Mr. Coates along with the statements of many other witnesses that Golden had interviewed. That strange object had no doors at all, yet along its walls was carved a mysterious line of script, resembling the ancient hieroglyphs of the Akkad people. However, those scant and vague bits of information were still not enough for Golden to find a satisfactory answer. In 1990, on the 25th anniversary of that mysterious event, the story was once again published by the press, capturing nationwide media attention. This report has sparked a fierce debate over the truth behind what happened at Kecksburg. Various theories have been proposed to explain the phenomenon that occurred on December 9, 1965. What exactly fell to Earth that day? It could be an unidentified flying object, UFO, or perhaps just a stray meteor. James Alberg, a space engineer, analyzed and drew his own conclusions after hearing the witness's account. He believes that the fireball-shaped object was not a UFO visiting Earth. As a specialist in Soviet space history research, James believes this is the probe after transferring the Cosmos funds back to the country. To understand James's reasoning clearly, we need to go back in time to 1965. During this period, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, identified Cosmos 96 as a notable target and conducted close surveillance. This is a Soviet Venus probe satellite, part of the Venera project that the country researched for 22 years. It was trapped in its own orbit, unable to go any further, so it fell back to Earth and burned up. In this case, the probe re-entered the atmosphere and landed precisely on the day of the Kesberg event. However, the Soviet Union denied this. At that time, NORAD lacked the advanced technology to precisely determine the landing location of the ship. To date, authorities have not found evidence to determine the exact location where Cosmos 96 crashed. To verify the theory, James checked the Air Force tracking data from December 9, 1965. The U.S. Air Force maintains an extensive archive of highly detailed historical records on satellite and space operations. He believes this is the crucial key to unraveling the mystery of the Kesberg case. To his surprise, after the Cosmos investigation, an unexpected conflict came to light, along with the events at Kesberg that left James utterly stunned. Keelan noticed that the flight trajectory of COSMOS 96 did not pass anywhere near the Pennsylvania area. At around 4:30 p.m., residents near the Kesberg area witnessed the Fireball Keela crashing into the forest. Here are the translation options based on your preference. Many believe the satellite landed in mainland central Canada, but Narath calculated that it could have traveled as far as the Indian Ocean. James still insists that the Air Force deliberately released false information about the Cosmos 96 incident. But if Narath truly published inaccurate data, how could the truth about the Kesberg incident be hidden? It wasn't until 2000, when technology had advanced further, that James officially dismissed the hypothesis related to COSMOS 96. That was simply a random coincidence between the two events, with no connection whatsoever. However, he still emphasized that the possibility of other satellites falling on the same day cannot be ruled out, rather than agreeing that the object discovered in the accident was a UFO. In 1960, the US and the Soviet Union were fiercely competing in the space race. As a result, satellites malfunctioning and crashing back to Earth became an entirely common occurrence. When the enemy's satellite fell into their territory, that alone was reason enough for them to mobilize large-scale forces and tightly control information. Not stopping there, James also hypothesized that this object could be a piece of spacecraft debris or space junk, which entered Earth's atmosphere before crashing in the Kesberg area. To date, we still cannot accurately determine the amount of space debris that has fallen back to Earth. Most of it burns up in the atmosphere, free-falling and glowing like fireballs. Upon landing on the ground, the military intelligence officers will immediately take notice and thoroughly collect them. Nevertheless, this hypothesis remains a difficult scenario to accept. For an unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, researcher like Golden, space debris cannot fully account for what the witnesses described. He was certain that a massive object of unknown origin had fallen from the sky, and it seemed the military had arrived to handle it. All witnesses gave consistent testimonies regarding the shape of that object. Moreover, no country on Earth has ever manufactured a satellite with such a bizarre design. With over 30 years pursuing the case, Golden believes eyewitness accounts are the most compelling evidence. Finding witnesses and gathering their testimonies is very challenging because they do not want their identities revealed. Was there some force actively preventing people from recounting what they witnessed? Another hypothesis suggests that what the people of Kesberg actually saw was a dense meteor shower. It will easily attract attention thanks to its extremely bright light, even visible from a great distance. That object is said to have appeared in several states, even as far as Michigan, which is 842 kilometers away from Kesberg. Southwestern Ontario, north of the city of Windsor. According to witness testimonies from Pleastone and Weaver, the object made a controlled landing in the Kesberg area. They were believed to have experienced hallucinations. When a bright fireball appears, observers in the outskirts often think it will land right in front of them. The fireball continued to blaze, rising beyond the horizon, making it appear as though it was hovering above buildings or residential areas. Surface, even if it. Therefore, in the end, some still believe the Kesberg incident was merely the crash of an unusually shaped meteorite. However, the debate over the mysterious object in Kesberg not only refuses to die down but grows increasingly heated. If it was just a simple meteorite fall, why would the government stay completely silent and even prevent people from approaching the site? Moreover, the government's silence could anger the public and make it harder to resolve the issue. After thorough analysis, the testimonies of the witnesses, particularly Bill Weaver's, were the most crucial key points. Perhaps those who claim the military was not heavily present in the protest area on December 9 either didn't see it, weren't there, or deliberately chose not to speak the truth. Therefore, it can be inferred that the US government most likely deliberately disseminated misinformation and kept the true events that occurred in Kecksburg in 1965 completely secret. They also cite excerpts from Project Blue Book to assert that the military and government have always sought to conceal the truth about ambiguous, unclear incidents. The media kept calling for information, and the project leader insisted it was just a meteor, but official documents still stated that the incident was under investigation. Everything was just a myth. Over the following decades, media interest in the incident gradually faded away. But many still believe that the villagers of Kecksburg knew the whole story. They were just deliberately hiding the truth. The victims still have to live in silence, too afraid to speak out. We all have our doubts, but the government insists nothing happened. Where do you get the basis for you and me to trust and agree to let this matter rest in the past? I believe the Kecksburg incident is proof of a UFO sighting, an instance where extraterrestrials openly visited Earth. Do you believe that UFOs have actually appeared on Earth, but the government has kept it hidden? Certainly, everyone has their own answer. It's time to say goodbye. Farewell, and see you all in Vu Trung Nguyen Tuyen. Wishing everyone a cool and pleasant day.